Steve Jobs once said, if you're working on something that you truly care about, you don't have to be pushed. That vision pushes you. What makes life truly beautiful isn't what you're given, but it's what you create. Hi everyone, I'm Savanna and this is Mental Mondays with Savanna, a motivating, mental cleansing, and energy boosting podcast. I focus on how one can improve their mental health while helping you build a better mindset, better habits, and a better life for yourself. I'm a 16-year-old CEO, a passionate storyteller, and an optimistic dreamer who views the world through a different set of lenses. I came on here to share that unique view with you. Ultimately, this is a raw reflection of my personal experiences. My biggest hope is that my videos ignite a spark in you to seek your highest potential and so that you can live a life without limits. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, happy Monday and welcome back to this podcast, Mental Mondays with Savanna. Today we will be covering the art of being proactive and the difference between a proactive and a reactive mindset. But before we dive into today's topic, I wanted to briefly tell you all that this podcast will now be coming out every other Monday rather than every Monday. I know I didn't state that at the start of the season, which I should have done that. I'm so sorry for the confusion. I know it was last Monday and everyone was like, where's the podcast episode? Where's the podcast episode? And I forgot to let you know that I'm going to be doing semi-weekly podcast episodes this season 2. Now, I know I did weekly podcasts back in season 1, and let me just say they were amazing. There's nothing that I would have taken from that incredible. I love talking to each and every one of you every single week, and I had so much fun producing content like this. But that was also during a time when I was less busy with school and other extracurriculars because that was during the summertime. Now that I'm back, I'm a junior, I'm in the peak of my school season. I have accepted a new position on the Sacramento Mental Health Board in Sacramento, and I'm planning all these new things for Happy Heart. I haven't really had as much time as I did in the summertime to release weekly episodes, but I still wanted to release that quality content for each and every one of you, and I didn't want to take from that. And I also still wanted to release my video casts every time I uploaded an episode. Also, something I didn't mention across all platforms last week, I am doing a video cast. That's a new element I have added to season 2. So if you are on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any other platform other than YouTube, check out my YouTube channel. I will link it in the description below. You guys can check out my new video cast that I'm doing and just enjoy that. But yeah, I wanted to produce quality content for you all while creating these video casts, but I know I was not going to be able to do all that with all the things I have going on right now. So just a heads up, Mental Mondays will be released every other Monday. Now let's get on to the episode. So for today's topic, we are going into the topic of being proactive, having a proactive mindset, and how we should strive to be proactive in everything rather than leading a reactive life. Okay, but what the heck does proactive and reactive even mean? Now, the simple definition of being proactive is acting before a situation turns into a crisis or a dilemma, while being reactive is acting after you're faced with that difficulty. But being proactive is so much more than just taking action before the problem. Being proactive means taking responsibility for your life. You don't blame your behavior or superficial factors like your circumstances, but you own your decision as part of a conscious choice that you made based on your values, whether good or bad. While reactive people are driven by feelings, proactive people are driven by values. And that's an important note that we need to know throughout this episode. So proactive people focus their efforts on the things that they can change, whereas reactive people focus their efforts on the areas of their lives in which they have no control over, and then they often have a negative way of thinking when things don't go their way. Now, there are some who are totally reactive to everything around them, and then there are others who strive to be proactive in everything they do. And still, there are others who are like a mix of both. In some areas of their life, they're proactive, while in other areas, they're subconsciously reactive. Now, I was like one of those people for a while, and I wasn't even aware of this until recently. I was a reactive person, being proactive in some things, but not all. Now, I wasn't like the aggressive reactive person who throws a fit when things don't go my way. I would be more like the hesitant reactive person that didn't proactively act on the things I'm passionate about. And I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that I was afraid of leaving my comfort zone. But this continued for a while, and then COVID-19 struck the world, and people had to stay inside. Businesses had to go on pause. Some stopped indefinitely. And you know the phrase, you don't know what you have until it's gone? Well, that's exactly what I went through. My nonprofit Happy Heart Advisors had to go on pause, and all the programs that we were doing in elementary schools, teaching kids about the heart, it went on an indefinite hiatus since schools were shut down. It's recently gone back up again, but that's besides the point. Anyways, it went through a pause, and I was like, wow, I realized that I actually had something, but I didn't realize the impact of the program before everything just shut down. Everything went on pause. And I kind of went through a shock during this time, and it was so weird because I was so used to doing my programs. But all that went out the window once COVID took place. But here's the thing. I I would classify myself as not a totally reactive person, not a totally proactive person, but somewhere in the middle. I'm very passionate about the heart. I'm very passionate about teaching other kids about it, but I don't think I was really proactive in that. I think I have improved since then, ever since I have realized that and I have started acting upon that. But I didn't really realize that. But during quarantine, when everyone was forced to stay home, I had to really meditate. I had to think about what I was doing. And I then came across a saying, and it said, what makes life beautiful isn't what you're given, but it's what you create. This really made me take a step back and think about what I have been given all of my life and what I have been blessed with, but what I lacked to actively create. I've been given all these blessings, but I lacked to create stuff actively. So I did a lot of thinking and I reflected during this time period, and I slowly found that passion that was hidden deep within me, and I actually started acting on that passion. I didn't realize that passion has always been inside of me, but I never really proactively acted on that passion. So once I realized that, I was like, okay, we got to make a change. So step by step, I started taking actions for my organization, Happy Heart. I started being my own boss. I started girl bossing it. And rather than waiting for the situation to act upon me. In a way, quarantine allowed me to see what I had, and it made me not take things for granted. And it also allowed me to find my true self and take the time to reflect on my potential, all the things I'm capable of doing, and all the things I've done so far. And so once I found my true self and act upon that, that's when I started being more proactive. And it was just such an amazing experience. And I'm still going through that adventure. I'm still on that ride. But it's a continuous process of learning, growing from my mistakes, from all the situations I'm in. But it's so liberating when you're able to act and grow from that. But I didn't let my situations define who I was. I'm the one who bossed the situation. I didn't let the situation boss me. And I think that's really the key difference between being proactive and reactive. Those are the key differences. So before we do anything else, let's actually break down the art of being proactive versus reactive step by step. So being proactive is more than a perspective. It's a mindset that you take towards the world. Simply put, it's a way of life. It requires for you to accept responsibility for your actions and take the initiative to make things better. Instead of letting their conditions and circumstances to be the driving force of their decisions, proactive people allow their values to determine the choices they make. Proactive people act rather than being acted upon. In 1989, Stephen Covey introduced his books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I strongly suggest you read it because it absolutely changed my perspective on the world, my decisions, and the contributions that we make in life. But in that book, the first habit he explains is being proactive. That was one of his very first points. Dr. Covey gives a very powerful example relating the art of being proactive to the game of baseball. One of the most memorable phrases that he continues to say is, play the ball before the ball plays you. Now, I'm no baseball expert myself, and I was curious as to why he's relating being proactive to the sport. So I did a little bit of research, and I found that when you're first beginning baseball and you're playing defense, trying to control a ground ball. Now, a ground ball is a baseball that hits and rolls on the ground. You're on defense, right? It's your first time playing baseball, and you see this ground ball coming. The natural impulse of beginners is to stand until the ball rolls to you. Here's the funny thing about baseballs. Baseballs are not predictable like that. They hit the grass, they hit dirt, they sometimes hit worms, potholes, who knows? Sometimes there's wind that changes its direction, and even if the ball just manages to perfectly roll in your direction, sometimes it doesn't even go into the glove. Now, when that beginner passively waits for the ball to come to them, let's just say it's not going to come to them. So, playing the ball before it plays you is saying that it's saying that it addresses that same problem of being reactive. It's telling the ball to run towards the ball. It's telling the player to run towards the ball, to attack it, to take initiative on it before it does the same to you. It's a reminder to be proactive and not reactive. Now, effective players cause the play to happen. Poor players wait until they're affected by the ball, allowing the ball to determine the play and their outcome. So, how can we transform our mind and our attitude from a reactive perspective to a proactive mindset? How can we play the ball before it plays us? The first tip of today's episode is one, we need to figure out what we're currently focused on. Now, earlier I talked about how reactive people are driven by feelings and proactive people are driven by values. So we need to evaluate what we're driven by and how that's affecting our decisions and mentality. And let me just get this straight. Some things we simply can't control, they're just out of our reach. But a simple way of figuring this out is actually using Dr. Covey's model, which he shows in the book. And it's called the circles of concern and the circles of influence. Now, imagine this circle, right? Within this circle, you put all your worries, all your anxieties, all the things that you're afraid about, your health, limited job opportunities, the economy, kids, finances, all these different things. You put that in the circle. Anything and everything that causes you to worry, you put that in the circle. Even the little stuff. That is called your circle of concern. Now imagine a circle inside the circle of control. Inside that new circle, You put the issues that you have some or complete power over, that you have some influence over. Yes, your financial situation may be a little bit iffy, but there are some things that you can do to get control of that, like cutting back on spending or budgeting properly. This is your circle of influence, the things that you have influence over. Some things won't make it into your circle of influence and will just remain in your circle of concern. You can't influence stuff like the weather. You can't influence your luck. You can't tell your body not to get cancer. And you don't really have much control over other people's decisions. But according to Covey, what separates reactive people from proactive people is which circle they spend the most time, energy, and attention in. Now, reactive people pay more attention to the items that are just in their circle of concern, the stuff that they have little or no control over. Then they tend to worry about it sometimes, or they avoid it, they procrastinate on it. That's what reactive people do. When we focus only on our circle of concern, it just makes us feel worthless. Like we can't control all these things. If I were to ever be in that situation where I look at these things, I'm like, oh my God, I can't control any of this. I would feel so helpless at that time because I like to be on top of things. I like to get stuff done. But seeing these lists of things and worrying over them, it would definitely put my self esteem down. And then people become paralyzed. They fail to act on things that they actually can do. And this can then lead to burnout and then lack of energy. But proactive people spend more time focusing on their circle of influence, the things that they can control. When you focus on these things that you have control over, you see that your actions affect the world, which is pretty empowering, if I say so myself. That feeling of empowerment impulses you to take more action, which causes you to feel more empowered and just causes you to take more action. Focusing on that circle of influence then creates a constant cycle of action, and as you take more action, you gain more competency, which then allows you to have more influence on the world around you. Things that used to be in your circle of concern will now seem to be like it's in your circle of influence. In short, focusing on your circle of influence increases your circle of influence. So, in order to transition to this proactive mindset, sit down and write a list of all the things that worry you on a piece of paper. This will represent your circle of influence. Take a little break, come back to your list when you're ready, and then slowly ask yourself one by one, do I have some influence over this? Do I have some influence over that? And the influence doesn't have to be anything big. But if you can influence the outcome of something, even in a small way, put that on your circle of influence list. And if you're having trouble, just ask a family member or a friend to help put this list together. And what this exercise will hopefully show you is that you have more control over your life than you think you do. And as a result, you can be proactive in more areas of your life than you originally thought. The second thing is that we should focus on our language and the attitude we carry throughout the day. Now, this is a big one for a lot of things, but this is a key one if we really want to shift our mind from reactive to proactive. So, one thing that Covey puts in his book is that we should learn to watch our language and how we phrase certain things. The secret is how you speak guides how you see the rest of the world. If most of your language is reactive, you're likely going to have a reactive mindset. If it's proactive, you're likely going to have a proactive mindset. But wait, what does a reactive mindset even sound like? Here are some phrases that you need to look out for that are reactive phrases. There's nothing I can do. That's just the way I am. He makes me so glad, or he makes me so sad. They won't allow that. Ugh, I have to do that. I can't. If you ever catch yourself using those phrases, here are some proactive phrases that you can replace it with. I control how I respond to this. Let's look for alternatives. I can choose a different approach. I choose. I prefer. I will. It will take some work. Sometimes I mess up too, but trying your best to change these words in these phrases can be the first step to changing your mindset. Also, if you're still a little bit confused as to a reactive mindset versus a proactive mindset, think of reactive mindsets blame the environment on how they're like. For example, my grandfather has anger issues. That's why I have anger issues and I can't do anything about it. That's kind of like a reactive mindset, but proactive mindset proactively looks for situations to change that. How can I change that instead of blaming everything on it? Another thing that we can do is simply take action, not waiting for the circumstance to be perfect or the weather to be just right for us to take action. While changing your mindset and language helps, the most powerful thing that you can do is to adopt a more proactive mindset, which is to take action. Because as you take action, you'll begin to show yourself that you can have an influence on the world. You have the ability to leave your mark, and your potential is so much more than you are currently presenting to yourself. And your actions don't have to be big. In fact, they shouldn't be big. Whenever you face a problem, break it down into itty bitty parts and tackle them one by one. It makes the problem less daunting and more concrete. Those are some things that have worked for me, and hopefully they'll work for you too. Remember, let's act and not be acted upon. Let's be proactive and not reactive. And the quote of the day comes from Steve Jobs. If you're working on something you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. That's from Steve Jobs. So, learning to be more proactive is an ongoing lifestyle and it's a lifelong learning process. There are always actions that you can take, but being proactive is a lifestyle and it's a mindset that we can slowly adopt. Always remember that what makes life beautiful isn't what you're given, but it's what you create and how you act upon that creation. I remember when I first found that during quarantine, it just really opened my eyes and I was able to say, wow, I've been reactive this entire time. I have not been proactively deciding to do things. And it just changed my perspective. I was like, wow, I can have this impact. I can have an even greater impact if I decide to proactively do stuff. And and it just reminded me that it's what we collectively add to this world that makes the earth what it is today. So, what makes life beautiful isn't what you're given, but it's what you create and how you act upon that creation. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the following weeks. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. You just listened to Mental Mondays with Savanna. Make sure to click the subscribe button below to receive more positivity every Monday and join the fam. And always remember, you can't impersonate anybody else, but you can become more than anybody else. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.